Morning. Right, time for some honesty, and nothing says honesty more than a man in his dressing gown about 10 minutes after I woke up this morning, because I need to get something off my chest, YouTube. My last video was full of lies. Well, not too many, mostly just lies by omission. And that's something I said I wouldn't do on this channel, but when I was editing, I really didn't want to destroy the flow of what was a very nice little video, and to be honest, I'm relatively happy with how that project actually worked. But it wasn't what the client ordered, and so overall, the project's been a bit of a fail. Today, I need your help, because basically what I'm going to show you is all the things I tried that didn't work involving staining over resin. And maybe, hopefully, someone out there can give me the tips I need, so if I ever tried this again, it wouldn't be such a balls up. Let's take a peek. If you haven't already, I'd highly recommend going and watching last week's 5-minute video on the lovely making of this wedding carved logo with some beautiful white resin and acacia. However, here's a hint of what should have gone on. That is the colour that it was supposed to be. And here's how it happened that it ended up looking like this. If you didn't see last week's version, here's a 30-second clip. So here we can see the stain and varnish by Fixit going on over the back, having already applied the sanding sealer, and it was beautiful. It was just one coat, and you can see how lovely and even it was. And this is the part I edited out where all of my problems began. I had read that stain and varnish and stain should not stick to the white resin. And to a degree that is kind of correct. Having applied all of my stain and varnish, I was able to wipe it off with a rag around the edges, and then it started to dry, and this is where the problem was. The Dremel and that little buffer disc simply wasn't enough to get it off, and so I had to sand it all back, and my second try was on the plain stain. This is the proof tint, metho based, alcohol in there, and this should not have stuck to the resin at all. It should have wiped straight off. I even did a little test and that worked, but that is the result I got. Completely and utterly bollocksed up the project. So I made a very, very cheeky router sled, and luckily my resin was deep enough, at least I was hoping at this stage, that I would be able to take 1 millimeter off the top, passing the router over, like you can see me doing here. And then I was just able to pass the router backwards and forwards using this very sled. Slow process, but I tried it previously on gunfire in order to cut my resin back, and that's where I got the idea to do this. And I got me back to bare wood fairly quickly. Reapplying the sanding sealer, and here you can see basically what you saw at the end of last week's episode. It looks nice. There's not a huge amount of contrast with the white resin, but it did look good. My final attempt was to paint on the stain and varnish, trying to be really careful not to get it on the resin, but I abandoned that pretty quickly. So, sometimes you've just got to call it quits and pull the plug and admit defeat on a project, and I think sadly that's what I'm going to have to do here today. I have spent over $100 on this piece and probably 20 hours working on it, and it's a $160 commission. So I am at the point where, while this was for a friend and she was getting mates rates, I'm basically going to have to offer it to the client for free because it's not close to the brief that we agreed upon. And it just is a lesson for me on several things. Firstly, probably being too eager to please. Basically, I quoted on my previous works, which I've done similar to this, which worked really well, and I was initially very confident, but it all hinged on me being able to get this wood dark. And on the back, no problem. That's still only one coat, and it's beautiful. I've got the sanding sealer underneath, that is the stain and varnish, and the Black Japan, and the wood did look like this, and now it looks fantastic. My problem has all been with this resin. I have cut it by hand, I have got the resin in there, I had it reasonably deep, and I've had a fail with the stain and varnish, and then I had an even bigger fail with the proof tint stain. The stain and varnish effectively stuck a little bit to the white resin, and I had to sand it all back to get rid of it. And then the proof tip was even worse. So I cannot maintain the white resin while staining the wood dark. So I think my only option is to clear coat the top of it. Just use some Danish oil and wax like I usually would. It will pop. It's not going to look, you know, how they wanted it. And it's just going to have to live there. And I said, I'll probably just give it to the client for free instead and see, take it as a lesson learned in not overextending yourself, particularly on a paid project. If this was for myself, I could just scrap it and move forwards, but it's very disappointing someone trusting you with the work and then not being able to deliver. Alrighty, well, I'll show you some pictures of what it turns out with the clear coat on there, but we'll leave this video for now. And fortunately, I have learnt a lot about staining and a bit about the sanding sealer as well with the resin, and there are some tips that going forward I'm going to be able to put into practice. You can't win them all, and this one sadly is a bit of a fail. Catch you next week on hopefully a happier note and some success in the future.